We got a lot from ancient Greece, from modern day democracy, from philosophy, from poems to art, to the even more modern day debt. Yeah, I would say the greatest asset, or the greatest thing to ever come from Greece would be the tales of heroes, gods and monsters. After all, I'm sure the Romans would agree, after they inducted most of the Greek mythological icons and gods into their own mythology, including the basis of Zeus, who they renamed to Jupiter. They also basically carbon copied Heracles, apart from changing the spelling with a K and pronounced it Heracles. This brings us onto the subject of today's documentary. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the tale of Heracles. A tale filled with so much deceit which leads to even more tragedy. A tale of monsters and a family that even Jeremy Kyle couldn't fix. Filled with deceit, snake assassins to kill a baby, and more incest than all of the southern states combined. This is the tale of Heracles. It all started one night when Zeus wanted to get it on. And this is the king of the gods we're on about here, the ruler of Mount Olympus. People prayed to him on the daily for anything. So you're gonna sleep with your wife? Nah. You're gonna sleep with one of your daughters or sisters you've already committed incest and adultery with? Nah. You're gonna flex your powers a bit, aren't you? You're gonna show your stuff, got to strut a bit. You know what I mean? So, as any normal person would do with them powers, Zeus disguised himself as a man who was away from home at war, fighting for Zeus's name. Pretty much of a jerk move, yeah. So, Zeus disguised himself as this woman's husband and impregnated the lady. But this is when it gets weird. The husband returned early from the war that night and impregnated the woman yet again. Also, someone really needs to speak to Mount Olympus's HR team if Zeus is just wandering off, you know, doing a Loki turning into someone's husband, and I'm pretty sure that's rape. But anyway, they both impregnated the mortal woman, Alchemy, whose husband, Amphitryon, had returned early at night to impregnate her as well. As I was saying before, this is already too difficult for Jezza. And I apologise for looking at my notes, but I cannot pronounce these names to save the life of me. And especially since everyone has like multiple names and different sayings, I'm gonna go with the one easy. The condition in which the twins were carried were called superfecundation, where a woman carries twins from different heirs. Although unknown to them, as of course the wife couldn't tell Zeus one her husband, although you'd think there'd be something given away. Anyway, back on track. Hercules' twin brother was Don Iphicles, who would father Hercules' charioteer and trusted companion Iolaus. See, Hera knew of Zeus's once again adultery, but what isn't known is why, for some reason, Hera singled out Hercules. Was it because Zeus had betrayed her trust, their marriage for a mortal, rather than one of their own, a god for say, even if it was their own daughters or sisters or uncles or whatever family members? And this hatred, this rage that fueled Hera would bring Hercules more demise than any monster or any king could. On the night the twins were set to be born, Hera made Zeus swear an oath. Both was that the child born that night to a member of House Perseus would become High King. Hera did this knowing sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Eurystheus would be able to rival Hercules for High King with her help. After the oath was sworn, Hera went straight away putting her plan into motion. Her idea was to stall the birth of Hercules and his twin. She went to and forced Lilithea, goddess of childbirth, to sit with her legs crossed, keeping the twins trapped in the womb of their mother indefinitely. Meanwhile, the deceitful goddess caused Eurystheus to be born prematurely, making him the High King in place of Hercules. She would have permanently delayed the birth of Hercules and his twin if they weren't for Galanthus, their mother's servant, who ended up tricking Lilithea into thinking the twins had already been born. This shock was enough to get her off her feet and to uncross her legs, allowing the twins to be born safely. Now, the angry goddess is not one to underestimate. Hera was out for revenge, and Lilithea was petrified of this. Fearing her revenge, she exposed the infant Hercules, but thankfully it was taken by Athena, his half-sister, who would actually deliver him to Hera, but Hera was unknown to his heritage at this point. Out of pity, Hera decided to nurse the baby Hercules, but to her shock, he was strong and it hurt. So she pulled the baby off, and in that instant, her milk sprayed among the cosmos, forming the Milky Way. And the milk gave Hercules strength like no one had seen before for a mere mortal or demigod. Athena brought the infants back to their parents. Hercules was originally christened Alcides by his parents, but he was renamed Hercules in an unsuccessful attempt to mollify Hera. After hearing of their newfound safety, Hera then sent 2 snakes to assassinate him in his sleep when they were only 8 months old. Little baby Hercules was asleep until the sound of his twin brother crying woke. As the only just woken up baby Hercules came to, he noticed 2 big snakes by his twin brother. Hercules wasn't scared though. He didn't make a single squeak. He grabbed the snakes, one in each hand, choked the air out of them until their slim, elongated bodies stopped moving completely. To her dismay, their mother walked in and found Hercules playing with the 2 snakes as if they were teddies. Hercules continued to have an eventful childhood. He killed his music tutor, Linus, with a lyre. As punishment, he was sent to tend cattle on a mountain. It was here where he was said to be given a choice when visited by 2 allegorical figures, Vice and Virtue. They offered him a choice: live a simple and plain life, or a severe but glorious one. The young demigod chose the latter. Later in life, Hercules would marry King Creon's daughter, Megara, who he would have a family with and live quite happily, until Hera induced Hercules into a fit of madness and blind rage. Convinced his children and lover was demons and monsters, he slayed them. After his madness had been cured with hellebore by Antichrius, he fled to the oracle of Delphi, craving her wisdom, craving a way to right this wrong, to seek redemption. but also earning. Unknown to our hero, Hera had been plotting 10 steps ahead, as she always had been. She'd already instructed the Oracle to place Heracles under command of King Eurystheus. He was directed by the Oracle to serve the new king for 10 years, in which Eurystheus commanded Heracles to complete the labours. Originally there was 10, yet certain circumstances 2 was added. This is where the best known part and most eventful part of Heracles' life kicks in. These are the 12 labours. This is what gave Heracles his glory and his fame originally. This is what made me interested in Greek mythology and what I wish interests you too. This is a tale of how someone, through grief and depression, still comes out on top, still overcomes every obstacle faced their way. And is sat there, or stood, waiting for the next one, with a smile on their face, determined that they'll see it through just like the last. This is a tale of how a tortured soul turned it around and claimed redemption. This is the 12 labours of Heracles. The lion was said to be a man-eater, a thing of legend, a thing that all people feared when going to the zoo. Most people will only recognise the Nemean lion from seeing it hung around Heracles' shoulders and waist, however, as from after he killed it, he skinned it and donned the lion's pelt, although numerous sources claim that it isn't always the Nemean lion, or in fact he never actually wore the Nemean lion pelt, it was just a normal lion. King Eurystheus asked Heracles to slay the lion as it had been torturing the countryside, both civilians and livestock. So Heracles gathered his bow and arrows and he set off an adventure. This wouldn't be the first time Heracles' bow and arrow will be used in a Greek myth, however. There's even been records of his bow and arrow being used in the Battle of Troy, in the Trojan War. Heracles was wandering for various days, scouring the countryside, until eventually he came across the lion's cave. Our hero waited patiently behind a rock, slowly waiting for the lion to return. When the beast did, Heracles used this chance to surprise the lion with a shot from his bow. Yet to the hero's dismay, it didn't even pierce the lion. It bounced off like throwing a dart against a rhino. The hero was speechless. The tables had quickly turned. Heracles with a runner and the lion with a chasee. The lion had soon switched things around on Heracles, who was now having to outrun the lion. He eventually did so, and he returned to the cave and waited for the lion to leave its home again. Heracles then returned and blocked the entrance, positioning himself between a wall of rocks and a man-eating lion. It wasn't Heracles who were trapped, however. It was the beast. As the beast came charging at Heracles, he lifted up and wrestled it to the bare ground, slaying it with his bare hands. For proof that Heracles had completed the task, King Eurystheus demanded the lion's pelt as proof. So Heracles went to work sharpening his knife on the rock to try and cut the pelt. Yet, as much as he tried, as much as he sharpened his knife, it was left to no avail. He even tried the rock. Nothing was working. The lion's pelt was truly impenetrable. Until Athena turned up. His half-sister, who would bless him with so much wisdom and good fortune along his way, would show him that he would have to use the lion's own claws to cut his impenetrable skin. And just like that, Heracles returned with the pelt, and he had completed his first labour, the first year of his service. There was one condition King Eurystheus demanded of Heracles for the future labours though. Already coming weakened and scared by Heracles, he no longer wanted Heracles to be seen with these triumphs of his greatness in King Eurystheus' wrongly claimed city. Think about it. You've just snuck away with the throne. You're not going to have the best hero around, a victor of the people, come and do jobs you should be doing for your people yourself. So King Eurystheus demanded that Heracles would prove all the labours from now on outside of the city walls. At the time, nine-headed Lernaean Hydra was one of the most formidable creatures of Greek legend. It was a snake-like monster that dwelled in the Lernaean lake. It had poisoned blood and nauseating breath. As soon as a head was cut off from a Hydra, two more would replace, making it often suicidal to even think about fighting the beast. The Hydra and the Nemean lion were both spawns of Typhon and Echidna, two of the most famous monsters in Greek mythology. Heracles would go on to best 4 of their offspring, killing 3, including Ladon. The one who, however, escaped with its life was Cerberus, which we will touch upon later. Hercules set off with a bow, some arrows, and his newly gifted magical golden sword from his half-sister Athena to go slay the beast. He came across the swamp where the Hydra lived. He covered his mouth and nose so he wouldn't get harmed from the nauseating chemicals the Hydra exhaled when it breathed. He made quick work of the 9 heads, yet they soon became 18, doubling his problems, which then soon became 36. And it would have been so on if he didn't have the tactical know-how. It would have got worse unless Heracles had the knowledge in which he did to retreat. See, in this retreat, Heracles wasn't giving him a fight. No, he was simply gifting the Hydra a battle. See, by gifting the Hydra the battle and retreating through the forest, Heracles found his cousin Iolaus and asked him to help. Some sources claim it was his mortal twin brother or cousin who helped. Like most stories of Greek legend, there are multiple accounts and multiple different people taking up the roles of others. The plan was for Heracles to cut the heads and Iolaus to burn them, preventing them from growing back. They were met with an angry Hydra with more heads than they could count. Heracles quickly and swiftly pulled out his sword and was ready for battle. He started slaying the heads off. They were flying as Iolaus burned the stems of which they came. Enraged by the progress Heracles were making, Hera sent a crab to distract him. The crab was realistically and quickly crushed under his foot, not really distracting him. With one head remaining, Heracles dipped one of his arrows in the Hydra's own poisonous concoction of its blood and shot it straight in the last remaining head, killing it with its own concoction. A sense of poetic irony, if you will. Heracles then collected the poisonous blood and added it to his arsenal of magical tools and headed back to once again tell King Eurystheus how successful it was. However, to the dismay of Heracles, the king was disappointed, yet happy. He had found a way to cancel the labour, as Heracles had had help. Hera, distraught and upset due to losing her special pets, decided to immortalise the Hydra and the crab as constellations. This is said to be why we have the constellations Cancer for the cat and Hydra for the Lernaean Hydra. The Cernian hind was a huge female deer which lived in Cernia. It was a sacred animal to Artemis, goddess of the hunt. Although it was female, it had antlers like a male, which was made of solid gold as well as bronze hooves. It was said it had the ability to outrun a flying arrow. The king thought the hind would be impossible to catch even for Heracles. He also hoped that Heracles trying to capture the hind would trigger the wrath of Artemis, and the goddess would kill him for it. Heracles chased the hind for a whole year, in and out of Greece. There are, like most myths, various versions of how he finally managed to capture it. One suggests he captured it while it slept after lightly hurting it in a net trap. Another suggests that Artemis appeared in front of the hero, demanding him to leave the hind alone. Lastly, another was that he captured it by using an arrow between its legs. After capturing the animal and heading on his way back to see King Eurystheus, Heracles encountered Artemis and her twin brother Apollo. The hero begged Artemis for forgiveness and told her about the predicament he was in, and why it was made a necessity he captured her hind. She did indeed accept the apology as long as he agreed he would set it free afterwards. So deviously, Heracles thought of a plan so he could keep his promise to the god and goddess. He requested the king himself came to retrieve that animal. When King Eurystheus started walking towards Heracles let go of the hind a moment too early on purpose, letting it escape, yet completing the labour. Winter had come, and Hera and King Eurystheus thought Hercules' next labour would be to capture the Rhamamphian boar. So our hero Hercules set off to capture this boar. On the way to his quest, he decided to stop and visit a friend for advice. Pholus, a friendly centaur. Pholus advised Hercules that he would be able to capture the boar if he chased him through deep snow, as it would be much harder for the boar to manoeuvre. With the centaur's advice, he set off to capture the boar. With some searching and a striker look, our hero found him. He charged at the boar like a man possessed and sent it running into the deep snow. Remembering that his friend said he had chased it onto and through the snow. The boar soon got stuck and was immobilized, leading Hercules to capture him easily and quickly. When he returned to King Eurystheus, the king was scared of the boar and demanded Hercules to get rid of it. Scared that he'd disband them, scared that he'd disqualify another labour, Hercules, without a second of thought, lifted up the boar and threw it into the ocean. This task, unlike others, was barely worth the hassle of a hero like Hercules. He's been slaying monsters for 4 out of 5 years at this point. It was to clean the stable of Orgeus in a single day. Orgeus was a king in Elis and had massive herds of cattle, 300,000 to be accurate. The stable had been neglected. The care it took to maintain it was too much for the king's simple staff. And with it, it remained unclean for years. Hercules stepped before King Orgeus. Without informing him that King Eurystheus had commanded him to do so, he pledged himself to the task. The king couldn't refrain from laughing when he thought of this mighty hero that stood before him dressed in a legendary wine pelt, cleaning up his cattle's manure and asking to do it. The king stated to himself, and I quote, "Necessity has driven many brave men. Perhaps this one wishes to enrich himself through me. That will help him little. I can promise a large reward if he cleans out the stables. For he can in one day clear little enough." The king Orgeus promised Hercules a 10th part of all my possessions and cattle if he could clean the stables in one day. The hero accepted the challenge, but to the king's dismay, he did not reach for a shovel. He instead tore the foundations away from one side of the stables. The streams Alpheus and Peneus flow nearby. It was Hercules' plan to redirect the flow of the streams and have them do his work for him, so he could accomplish the task without stooping to anything unworthy of an immortal. When King Orgeus had learned the work had been done in service to King Eurystheus, he straight up refused to reward Hercules what he promised, yet mistakenly agreed to have the question in court. Here in court, Phyleus, commanded to appear by Hercules, testified against his own father. The King Orgeus, feeling betrayed by his own king, did not await for a decision. He commanded his son and the stranger to leave his kingdom that needed. When King Orgeus learned that the work had been done in service to King Eurystheus, the king denied to pay Hercules. And when King Orgeus found out the work had been done in service to King Eurystheus, he straight up denied his promise of paying Hercules. This matter was brought up into court, where Hercules summoned Phyleus to testify against his father. After doing so, King Orgeus banished his king and Hercules from his land. The labour, along with number 2, the slave-learning Hydra, would soon become dismissed. As for this one, it was because Hercules accepted payment for the labour. It didn't matter that he did not get it. What mattered was that at the start, he did agree to do it for a fee. These Stymphalian birds, as they were dubbed, had a bronze beak and sharp, shiny metal feathers, similar to a sky moray. They were carnivorous, man-eating birds, and was capable of firing the metallic feathers at the victims like organic darts with a simple flick of the wing. The birds had migrated to Lake Stymfalia and multiplied like bacteria, reaching great numbers and proceeded to terrorise the townspeople. On his way out to his quest, Heracles ran into a similar face. It was his half-sister Athena, who once again donned a gift for a half-brother. This time it was a special noisemaker. It would scare the birds into the air and keep Heracles safe. He soon arrived at the Lake Stymfalia and found a massive flock totaling thousands of these bronze-beaked metal birds. They were found nesting all over the lake and in the trees. Heracles pulled out his new gift from the gods and filled the air with an absurd, loud and melodious sounds from the crotalot. Frightened of the noise, the birds desperately took flight. As swiftly as they all took off, Heracles whipped out his bow and arrow and started shooting. One by one, the birds were pierced and slain with fire arrows. Heracles managed to kill 100 of these magnificent. Heracles managed to kill 1,000 of these. Heracles managed to kill 100 of these magnificent. Oh, fuck's sake, why can't I say magnificent? Heracles managed to kill 100 of these magnificent killing machines before the rest eventually took herd and fled. He picked up a dozen or so of their carcasses and took them back for King Eurystheus as proof of his completed labour. The Cretan bull was a gift from Poseidon, god of oceans, to King Minos of Crete. It would soon spawn the legendary Minotaur. Yet the Cretan bull itself, however, was a very docile, peaceful creature. At least it was until King Minos upset the god of oceans. Poseidon struck the beast, driving it mad, sending it crazy and changing its behaviour radically. The deranged beast soon started to make trouble and terrorise the local folk. Hercules swiftly set sail to the Isle of Crete. Once he arrived, he witnessed the bull devastating the local farmland. He was actually greeted by King Minos himself, who actually offered to help Heracles for nothing in exchange. Fearing to fail yet another labour, and Hercules politely declined, however, as he was worried King Eurystheus would only use it as an excuse to disallow it. Hercules set off to find the Cretan bull. Not so long after, he found it resting, drinking from a waterhole. Hercules crept up behind it and grabbed it by the horns, subduing it into the ground. When it was there, he grabbed it with one arm as he tied it, a bit of rope around its legs, securing the bull. Hercules returned to King Eurystheus once again with a captured monster, and yet again the king was scared of it. Not wanting to show this to Hercules, however, he decided that they sacrifice the bull to Hera. So Hercules picked up the Taurus and lobbed it into the sky, making the constellation known as Taurus. His eighth task, in order to seek his redemption, was to bring the mares of the Thracian Diomede to Mycene. Diomed was a son of Mars and ruler of the Bistonians, a very warlike people. His mares were so fast and strong they had to be fastened with bulky iron chains. Their typical food consisted of hay, like typical horses, yet for strangers who had the misfortune of displeasing the king, or who would simply just wander into the city, they were from before the carnivorous horses, their soft flesh serving the mares as food. When our hero arrived, the first thing he did was to seize the sadistic, inhuman king himself, ironically throwing him to the mares so his flesh could too become food for them horses of nightmares. With this feast of privileged royal flesh, the animals were satisfied, and Heracles was able to drive them into the sea. But the loyal, fierce Bistonians were outraged at the fate of their ruler, and chased Heracles with weapons. He was left no option but to turn and fight them. He gave the horses into the safekeeping of his companion, Abderus, the son of Mercury. Unfortunately, while Heracles was away, the animals soon requited their hunger and devoured their captor. Upon returning, Heracles was greatly grieved over the loss, and later founded a city in honour of Abderus. He then drove them to Eurystheus, hoping to not have another person eaten. The later then gifted the horses into the care of Juno. For his ninth labour, Heracles was tasked with going to the kingdom of the Amazons and stealing the girdle of the queen. King Eurystheus requested it as a gift for his daughter. The Amazonians were a magnificent race of warrior women. Legend has it they were great archers who had even invented horseback archery. They were also said to be the offspring of Ares, god of war, and Harmonia, a nymph of the Arconian wood. Hercules was cautious entering the world of the warrior women, and so recruited a number of people to accompany him into this majestic yet deadly land. Among these were Theseus. To their surprise, the gracious queen of the Amazons, Hippolyta, willingly bestowed Hercules her belt. However, Hera wasn't having any of this. In an outrage, she misinformed the Amazons, telling them that the Greeks had captured the queen against her will and were keeping her prisoner, stirring the warrior women into a battle frenzy, fearing for the life of their queen. A great battle ensued. Hercules managed to flee the Amazons with a belt, and Theseus kidnapped the Amazon princess. His 10th labour required him to travel west to Erythea, somewhere beyond present-day Spain, to kill Geryon, a giant with 3 bodies and 3 heads, to complement them. The giant lived peacefully, isolated with a herdsman and his 2-headed dog, Orpheus, a sibling of Servius. They all tended a large herd of cattle. King Eurystheus wished to own the cattle, yet he had no purpose for the simple and peaceful 3-headed giant. Legend goes that on his way to find the land, Hercules placed 2 rocks at the entrance of the Atlantic, which is now called Gibraltar. Wandering through the desert, he became infuriated with the sun. Frustrated, he started shooting arrows at Apollo. Apollo eventually sent a golden boat to transport him to Erythea. Compared to the likes of the Lernaean Hydra and the Nemean Lion, the herdsman and Orpheus weren't much for Hercules to handle. Yet the 3-headed giant times, one for each body and accompanying head. After defeating all of them, Heracles then started to make progress on his quest, driving the cattle back to Greece. In a cattle drive that anyone from the Old West would bat an eyelash at. Travelling through Italy, Heracles encountered a thief. As he slept near the cave of Cacus, son of Hephaestus, Cacus took the 8 best animals by dragging them backwards by their tails so it wouldn't leave an obvious set of tracks. Our hero had to follow the sounds of their mooing as the main herd passed by. As Heracles approached the cave, Cacus emerged from within it. He was a giant like the peaceful Gurion, apart from the fact he could breathe fire like a dragon and collected his victims' heads in a trophy room. Despite this, Heracles defeated the monster with a single blow of his wooden club. When Zeus and Hera married, Hera gifted her new husband with 3 magical golden apples. To keep them safe, Zeus treasured these apples in the garden of Hesperides for safekeeping. Atlas owned the garden, and a fierce dragon named Ladon guarded the golden apples with its life. Knowing that only Atlas can approach the apples or Ladon without being attacked by the dragon, Heracles seeks Atlas for help. Atlas had been long tired of carrying the world. Forgetting his obligation to Zeus and desperately wanting a break, agreed to steal the apples for Heracles. In trade, Heracles would take over Atlas's obligation to carry the world. Ladon was sleeping when his master approached. He raised a tired, lonesome eye to glance at Atlas, then resumed his slumber. Atlas took the apples, yet realised he no longer had to carry the earth on his shoulders. He told Heracles he would deliver the apples himself. Heracles, however, read his mind perfectly. He was smarter than Atlas. More than an insult to Atlas for the compliment to Heracles, however. He lied back to Atlas, saying that he wouldn't mind holding the earth as long as he could have something to rest upon his shoulder. Atlas took back the globe without suspecting Heracles. The hero then took the golden apples and quickly left the garden. Too late, Atlas noticed the deception. Hera and Zeus were enraged with anger and disappointment in the dragon's failure to protect the apples. To punish the dragon, Hera placed the creature among the constellations to guard the heavens forever, never resting, never setting. The last labour and the most difficult of them all. King Eurystheus sent Heracles out to the underworld to bring back his 3-headed guard dog, Cerberus. Heracles set off on his final quest, following the steps of Theseus, Pythagoras, and Orpheus. Down and down he went, past the snake-headed Furies, past Cisseus, Tantalus, and other iconic great criminals, past his friend Theseus. Finally, he arrived before the dark thrones of Hades and Persephone, king and queen of the underworld, or god and goddess. Hades blessed Heracles by granting permission to take his guard dog, yet only if he would do it with no weapons. Heracles achieved this, yet before departing, asked the god of the underworld for the release of Theseus, who had participated in, but not planned, the ill-fated attempt to kidnap Persephone. Theseus witnessed the battle of Cerberus and the demigod. It was a marvellous marvel to see, as Hercules gripped two of the three heads in a bare vice grip, throwing the beast over his shoulder. He then paraded the dog of Underworld around and through the streets of Greece until he reached the king himself. The king unexpectedly was frightened beyond belief at the three-headed giant canine before him, and what Heracles had become. After completing the tasks that the oracle claimed Hercules would find redemption in completing, he went on to continue his life. Finally, our hero soon fell for another, the Princess Iole of Oechalia. King Eurytus, the princess's father, promised his daughter to whoever could beast his sons with a bow. To the surprise of no one, Hercules was once again victorious, like all his other conquests. Yet the king abandoned his promise. Heracles' efforts to court the princess were dismissed by the king and his sons. Well, all except one, Iphitus, Iole's brother. Hercules killed the king and his sons, excluding the ugly duckling, the long, decent son, Iphitus. Iphitus and Heracles bonded well, becoming close, trusted friends. Everything seemed to be going good for Hercules. Well, that's the problem. Hera up in Olympus couldn't bear the sight of Hercules' glory, his happiness. So once again, she drove him mad. Hercules lifted Iphitus completely off the ground with ease. In his delusional state, Hercules threw him over the city wall to his death. Once again, Hercules was grief-stricken. How could he be sent mad once again? How could he kill someone close to him again? And yet again, he seeked redemption. Again. His redemption this time came in the form of dedicating 3 years of servitude to Queen Omphalia of Lydia. Queen Omphalia made Hercules her slave. She forced him to do women's work while donning women's clothes, while she herself wore the Nemean lion's pelt with pride, and carried his olive wood club as another souvenir. After being humiliated for some time, Queen Omphalia freed the embarrassed Hercules and married him. Some sources mention a son who was born, with various names. This wouldn't be the end of Hercules' adventures, however. Countless have been told over and over again throughout the ages. But before we get to his death, let's cover a few. Hercules founded the city Tarentum, modern-day Taranto in Italy. As an Argonaut, Hercules killed Alastor and his brothers. He even slayed a giant which was immortal while it touched the earth. So he killed it by picking him off the ground completely while strangling him. Hercules even revisited King Augeas. Augeas' generals prevented him from being defeated in battle. After Hercules fell ill, the generals eliminated most of his army. When covered, he ambushed and killed the generals, and then proceeded to march straight for the soon-to-be-dead Augeas and his sons. After countless more adventures, Hercules, having wrestled and defeated Archeos, god of the Archos river, Hercules weds the Denaria. As the pair were travelling to Tiryns, the wedded couple came across a river which Denaria couldn't cross without help. A centaur named Nessus offered to help Denaria across the fast-flowing river while Hercules swam it. However, stereotypes usually exist for a reason, and in this case, Nessus was demonstrating as such, as he tries to steal Denaria while Heracles is still in the rapid water. Angry and feeling betrayed, Heracles whips out his bow and arrow, primes an arrow dipped with the poison of the Hydra, and sets aim. The arrow soars and hits the centaur. With his dying breath thinking of revenge, Nessus gives Denaria his blood-soaked tunic before he dies, telling her that it will excite the love of her husband. Some time passes and Denarius fears she has a rival for the love of her Hercules. Remembering the words of the centaur, she gives the tunic to Lichas to deliver to her husband. Lichas does indeed pass the tunic to Hercules. However, the tunic is covered in the Hydra's blood from Hercules' arrows. This poisons him, tearing his skin, showcasing his bones. Before he passes to this painful death, believing Lichas to be the one who intended these deathly results, Hercules throws Lichas into the sea like he did the Cretan bull. Kind of ironic, since this is a plan spawned in the brain of a centaur. Some sources claim Lichas turned to stone, becoming a rock, standing in the sea. Still alive, yet dying gradually, Hercules uproots several trees and builds a funeral pyre on Mount Oeta. Poeas, father of Philoctetes, lights the pyre, although some sources claim it was Iolaus, his twin brother, who did indeed light the pyre. As his body burns, his mortal side remains, though Zeus apotheosis, Hercules rises to Olympus as he dies. As his body is burned, his mortal side remains. Through Zeus's apotheosis, Hercules rises to the Olympus as he dies, giving the hero the Jesus-like death he was wanted. For lighting the pyre, Poeas is gifted Hercules' bow and arrows, which was used by Poeas to help Greece win the Trojan War. And that, my keen viewers, is